1914. A German soldier fires his Mauser rifle at a French trench. The Frenchman returns fire. Both are unaware of one thing: the money for their bullets, their uniforms, their rations came from the same source. One bank, one family, the Rothschilds. While Europe bled out, 5 brothers sat in 5 capitals counting profits. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is the documented history of the most influential banking dynasty in the world, a story about turning human tragedy into a gold mine. Have you ever wondered why some wars drag on for years when they could have ended in months? Why peace treaties are sometimes signed suddenly when no one expects it? The answer is simple and cynical: because it's profitable for someone. And today, you'll learn the names of these people. It all started in the filthy Jewish ghetto of Frankfurt in the late 18th century. Meyer Amschel Rothschild traded old coins and understood a simple truth: kings come and go, empires crumble, borders change, but money remains, and whoever controls money controls history. He had 5 sons, and he did something no one had done before: turned them into living weapons. One son went to London, the second to Paris, the third to Vienna, the fourth to Naples. The 5th remained in Frankfurt. 5 brothers, 5 capitals, 1 goal. They created the first multinational corporation in human history. Except their product wasn't goods. Their product was power itself. The Napoleonic Wars became their finest hour. Europe is burning. Napoleon conquers country after country. Millions die. Economies collapse. Chaos everywhere. For ordinary people, this was catastrophe. For the Rothschilds, perfect business conditions. Nathan Rothschild in London became the chief financier of the British Army. He smuggled gold across enemy lines, bribed customs officials, organized contraband routes. Without his money, the Duke of Wellington couldn't pay his soldiers. Britain was completely dependent on this banker. Now, pay attention. At the same time, Nathan's brothers were doing business with Britain's enemies. James Rothschild in Paris gave loans to the French government. Salomon in Vienna financed the Austrians. Karl in Naples worked with Italian kingdoms. Do you understand what this means? One family financed all sides of the conflict simultaneously. When a British soldier killed a Frenchman and vice versa, the Rothschilds earned twice. They didn't care who won, because the winner would owe them money anyway. The Battle of Waterloo in 1815 is a whole separate story. Napoleon versus the combined forces of Europe. The battle's outcome would decide the continent's fate for a century. On the London Stock Exchange, panic. If Napoleon wins, British government bonds turn to trash. If he loses, they skyrocket. Nathan Rothschild had something no one else did: his own intelligence network. His couriers were faster than the government's. He learned of Napoleon's defeat 24 hours before anyone in London. And then he makes a brilliant move. The morning after the battle, Nathan arrives at the exchange with a grim face and starts massively selling British bonds. Everyone knows Rothschild has the best information in Europe. If he's selling, Britain lost. Panic begins. Everyone rushes to sell. Prices plummet, and Nathan's agents quietly buy everything through proxies. When the official news of victory arrived the next day, he owned a huge portion of British government debt. Historians still debate the exact figure, but the profit was colossal. Some say millions of pounds. Others claim he earned more than the entire battle cost. One day, one operation, and he became richer than most European monarchs. But the money isn't the main thing. The main thing is the lesson the Rothschilds learned forever. Information is more valuable than gold, and war is the most profitable business in history. And they applied this lesson again and again. Let's fast forward 100 years. World War I. The bloodiest conflict humanity had seen at that point. 10 million dead, empires crumbling, an entire generation destroyed, and again, the Rothschilds on both sides. By this time, the family had expanded their influence even further. They had banks in every major European country. The London branch financed the British war machine. The French branch gave loans to Paris. Even in Germany, despite growing anti-Semitism, they maintained connections and influence. Here's how it worked in practice. Britain needs money for tanks, planes, shells. The government issues war bonds. Who buys them? The Rothschilds and their partners. Interest on loans is high because war risk is great. France does the same. Germany too. Each country goes into monstrous debt to continue fighting, and the bankers calmly collect interest. The longer the war lasts, the more loans are needed, the bigger the profit. See the logic? Peace is unprofitable. Prolonged war is what brings real money. There's a documented case from 1916. The war has been going for 2 years, millions dead, economies on the brink of collapse. Several European politicians begin secret peace negotiations. Rumors reach financial circles. And what happens? Financing is suddenly cut. Banks suddenly start demanding tougher terms for new loans. Peace negotiations collapse. The war continues for another 2 years. Coincidence? Maybe, but there are too many such coincidences in history. Now let's talk about the most cynical aspect of this entire system. The Rothschilds didn't just finance wars, they financed revolutions. Because revolution is also business. When an old government falls, the new one needs money. Lots of money, and they don't care where that money comes from. The Russian Revolution of 1917 is a classic example. Tsarist Russia owed Western banks enormous sums. The revolution overthrows the Tsar. The Bolsheviks come to power. It would seem they're communists, enemies of capital. But even they needed financing. And guess who helped organize international financial channels for the new Soviet government? Here's the important principle to understand. The Rothschilds and other major banking families didn't care who ruled a country, Tsar, Democrats, or communists. Only one thing mattered. Would the new government pay debts and take new loans? Ideology doesn't matter. Political slogans don't matter. Only contracts and interest matter. This is pure mathematics of power. World War II added another level of complexity. By this time, the center of the financial world had shifted from Europe to America. American Rothschilds and their partners, including the Rockefeller, Morgan, and Warburg families, controlled enormous resources. And again, the same scheme. American corporations connected to these families sold strategic resources to all sides of the conflict before U.S. entry into the war. The German industrial complex received loans from American banks. American companies built factories in Germany that later produced tanks and planes for Hitler. After the war, many of these facts were thoroughly documented, but the general public was almost never told about it. The most shocking example is the synthetic fuel story. Germany had no oil resources of its own. Without fuel, the Wehrmacht couldn't have conquered half of Europe. The Germans developed technology to produce synthetic fuel from coal. But key patents and technologies came from the American company Standard Oil, connected to the Rockefellers. Yes, those same Rothschild allies. German tanks that killed American soldiers ran on fuel created with American technology. After the war, there were congressional hearings, but no one faced real punishment. Too many influential people were involved. Here's what's really important to understand. These people weren't movie villains. They didn't sit in dark rooms planning the murder of millions. They simply played a game called maximizing profit. And the best way to maximize profit in their business is wars and instability. Peacetime is boring for bankers. Governments don't take emergency loans. People aren't willing to overpay. No panic, no super profits. But war is the perfect storm of opportunities. After World War II, the world changed. The UN appeared, international institutions, new rules. It would seem the era of puppet master bankers should have ended. But no, the system just became more complex and less visible. Direct financing of both sides of a conflict became impossible too obvious. But new instruments appeared, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, private investment funds, offshore accounts, financial derivatives. The scheme remained the same, just the names changed. Look at modern conflicts: Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine. Every war requires enormous money. Governments take loans. From whom? From major banks and investment funds, many of which are still connected to those same old families, only now they prefer to stay in the shadows. Weapons are produced by corporations traded on the stock exchange. Who owns shares in these corporations? The same investment funds. The circle is complete. The system works flawlessly. The Cold War was a masterpiece altogether. 50 years of confrontation between the USA and USSR. Both sides spent trillions on armaments, arms race, space race, proxy wars around the world. For For the military-industrial complex and the banks that financed it, this was a golden age. And most interesting, both superpowers took loans from international financial institutions to finance this confrontation. The USSR was formally communist, but even it needed Western credits to purchase technology and food. The system drew in even its ideological opponents. You might ask, if all this is true, why don't we hear about it? Why isn't this in history textbooks? The answer is simple. Who writes textbooks? Who finances universities? Who owns major publishing houses and media companies? The same people who prefer to remain invisible. This doesn't mean there's some secret conspiracy with weekly villain meetings. It means that people with money and power naturally protect the system that gave them that money and power. They don't need to conspire. Their interests align automatically. Documents exist. Letters between Rothschilds, financial reports, meeting minutes. Historians know about this. Some books have been written. But this information doesn't become mainstream. It remains in academic circles, in specialized publications that ordinary people will never read. And mass culture shows us a completely different picture of history, a history of heroes and villains, patriotism and betrayal, but almost never the history of money and those who control it. Today, the Rothschild family still exists. Their banks operate. Their wealth is estimated at hundreds of billions of dollars, though no one knows the exact figure. They've become more cautious, less public. They learn to work through complex corporate structures, through funds and trusts. But the principle remained the same. Money has no nationality. Money has no morality. Money simply flows where the highest profit is, and the highest profit has always been and remains in chaos, in crises, in wars. What can we take from this story? First, follow the money. When they tell you about war, about conflict, about crisis, always ask, who benefits from this? Second, power isn't where you think it is. Presidents and prime ministers come and go, but financial structures remain for decades and centuries. Third, the history we're taught often ignores the most important facts because these facts are inconvenient for those who control education and media. I'm not asking you to believe in conspiracy theories. I'm asking you to think critically, read documents, study history deeper than a school textbook. Understand that the world is more complex than news shows us. The Rothschilds are just one example, the most famous. But there are many such families and structures. They prefer to stay in the shadows, but their influence is enormous. Next time you hear about a new conflict, about military intervention, about the need to defend democracy or fight terrorism, remember this story. Ask yourself, who's making money from this? Who's giving loans for this war? Whose stocks are rising when bombs are falling? And then the picture of the world will become a little clearer, though much more cynical. If this video made you think, share it. Algorithms don't like content that asks uncomfortable questions. Hit like and subscribe so more people can see this video, because some stories are too important to remain in the shadows. Thanks for watching to the end. See you in the next video.